It says I'm live, but it's probably going to do that thing where it goes for 30 seconds or so and then starts the count over again. So we'll see. Although Alan says 5 by 5. Thanks. Beautiful. Good morning, everybody in the chat. I'm Bear from the internet, and it is the 27th of May, 2024, and it is Memorial Day, the day where we remember the sacrifice of all the good men and women who have given their lives in defense of this country. Several of whom I have known. And I guess I'll just say this. A, to those who have fallen, thank you. And B, to those who are still here, but at times wish they had fallen, 988. 988 is the number you dial for the National Suicide Hotline. So don't. The world is a better place with you in it, whether it feels that way or not. And the Creator didn't make you so that you could take yourself off of the battlefield. He needs you for a reason. What that reason is, I don't know, but he does. You should ask him. And even in the midst of the hurt and the pain and the suffering, don't. 988. It is the first link in the description of all my videos and has been for a couple of months now, because I lost my best friend to suicide and it sucks. So if you're there, if you're going through that, don't. Please and thank you. I promise you, the people that love you would rather go through this shit with you while you're still here than have to deal with the pile of shit that you leave behind you if you take your life. I promise you that. So, happy Memorial Day. It's not just a 3-day weekend where we get to go to the lake and pound Bush Light for no good reason. People have given their lives for today, and we honor that today, even if the country that they have been in service to is not what the propaganda has hyped it up to be. And that's okay. Those two things can exist at the same time. Honoring the sacrifice that the people have laid down in order to preserve our freedoms, and acknowledging that our freedoms are being eroded by a tyrannical governing class at the same time. So with that, happy Memorial Day. If you guys know all the things, man, we're so hardcore shadow banned here. I pulled up a live stream from 5 years ago because I needed to establish a timeline on something. And a live stream from 5 years ago where I had 1/10 of the viewership had the same number of views as a live stream that I do now. So yeah, there's over 200,000 people subscribed to this channel. Average video these days somehow gets capped at 19,000 views. So I would greatly appreciate it, given the fact that YouTube is actively working against us. They're not just blasé towards us, they're actively working against us. If you could share the show with somebody that you love, that would greatly help us. And then all the YouTube algorithmic engagement things, commenting, liking, blah, blah, blah. And of course, if you're new here, subscribing, a little bell icon, all the YouTube things. This is a coffee time with Bear, which is different than a brief. I have a written brief to read, but the coffee time with Bear is a little bit more conversational, a little bit more laid back, mostly because, if I'm being frank, I'm exhausted. And this is what I feel like doing today. The show is brought to you by the Creator of the universe, Yahweh, your Elohim, the Lord your God, who, whether you believe in him or not, he believes in you. And the fine people over at Patreon, link is in the description. It's best $10 you can spend per month on the internet. Think of it as like an OnlyFans, but I keep all my clothes on and teach you stuff instead of you masturbate. It's like that. And then, of course, Refuge Medical. for whom I'm the founder and CEO of Refuge Medical, and been amazed to see the way that little company has grown thanks to y'all. Our promo code PREP, which gets you 15% off all of your kits and components and trainings classes, that expires midnight on the 31st of May, 24. So if you're looking to potentially acquire something from Refuge Medical, use code PREP and do it relatively soon, because that promo code's gonna go away. Good morning, NWA Preppers. Shalom, brother. Encouraging community. That's a great question. We'll start there. How is everyone at Grindstone Ministries holding up? I think everybody is in good spirits, but after 17 days in Barnstable, I mean, the last of our equipment just got back from Barnstable approximately midnight, or today, technically. And I think everybody's in good spirits, but a lot of people are, I'll speak for me. I'm tired. I was talking with another brother yesterday who's also tired, and it's a weird kind of soul exhaustion, if that makes sense. And because there's only two people that derive a portion of their income from Grindstone, the rest of us are all entirely volunteer. I'm not one of those two people, by the way. It takes, and what are those two people? One is a diesel mechanic that makes sure that our stuff is ready to roll when we need it. The other is a logistics person that makes sure all of our stuff is pre-positioned where it needs to be, ready to roll when we need it. So it's for maintaining readiness, which is going to happen. You get enough trucks and trailers and pieces of heavy equipment, it's worth the investment to make sure you steward them properly. But we don't have like highly paid presidents and board members and all that. Our board members are all volunteer. The president, me, is volunteer. Everybody's volunteer. And including the people, the boots on the ground who come and do the work, they're volunteer. And so because of that, it's a big ask to ask people to deploy multiple times in the season, comma. The leadership at Grindstone very much so got the impression that when we left Barnesville, Oklahoma, it was to go rest and refit for a time, that we're not done yet. And it very much so appears that we're not done yet this storm season. In fact, one of the things I wanted to touch on this morning is that we were tracking yesterday via Ryan Hall. There was another series of storms that worked their way through Kentucky yesterday, Eddyville, Kentucky, and then towards Morgan's Gap and Earlington, and then on from there towards like Bowling Green, Kentucky. And it basically took a parallel course to the Mayfield, Kentucky storm in 2021, which we were on. One of the towns that was affected was Dawson Springs. We did work in Dawson Springs in 2021. When I say work, I mean nonprofit work. And so I've got people, patrons, using the Patreon chat app, Genius by Birth. Thank you for being a man of integrity with your focus on serving. Bless you. Thank you for the super chat. One of the bonuses of Patreon is that there's a chat feature there. And so we use that chat feature on Patreon for righteousness. And we have people who are Bear Independent patrons who are doing recon this morning of that storm path to determine if Grindstone needs to get out there and deploy. And I told my wife last night, I said, hey, these storms are bad. There'll be drone footage in the morning. And depending on what the drone footage looks like, I may have to go again. And to be perfectly clear, my flesh does not want to go. I do not want, I don't want to go. I have a house that I need to finish. I have land that I need to steward. I have an 83-day-old baby. I have a wife. I have 3 other children. I have a congregation of believers here that I steward as pastor. I've got 5 businesses. And I have another ministry, Caleb House, that's incredibly active. Even this very moment is incredibly active. And so my flesh does not want to go. And one of the very hard to quantify aspects of what Grindstone does is the conviction of the Spirit. I know that we're supposed to go somewhere when I get a multitude of witnesses asking me, hey, boss, are we up? Are we going? Are we going? Are we going? Are we going? So the Spirit tells us when to deploy. And that sounds very esoteric and frou-frou and new age, but it's true, because there are storms that you would think that we're absolutely supposed to go to, and we don't have the conviction to go. And then there's storms that like you hear nothing about, like Barnesville, Oklahoma. How many of y'all have ever heard of Barnesville, Oklahoma before we went there, or the storm that hit it? And when we got to Barnesville, it was obvious why we were there. In fact, bless you, weapons junkie. Thank you. And what's up, bro? Shalom. Haven't seen you in a hot minute. Maybe the next SRF. I'm trying for the fall SRF, bro. Shalom, NWA Prepper. I love you back, man. Be safe, brother. When we were in Barnesville, one of our volunteers, Sanctified Survival, came up to me and he said, man, this is incredible. He said, like, people don't realize, you don't talk enough about what it is to deploy with Grindstone. I said, yeah, well, it's kind of hard to describe. And he said, he had safety glasses on. He took his safety glasses off, looks me in the eye, and he goes, everywhere I look, there are vests that say Grindstone on them. And the only people who are out here are Grindstone. And that's why we need the Spirit to tell us to go. Because that's usually where we end up, is in a place where there's nobody else. There's no other nonprofits, no other 501c3s. It's just the locals trying to do their best to put their town back together. And let me tell you, 181 homes damaged or destroyed. No national news coverage. Why? Because it's in flyover country where the median annual income is $33,000 per year. Bless you, weapons junkie. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Amen, bro. And so my spirit is strong, but my flesh is tired. That being said, in my weakness, he is made strong. And so, truth in advertising, about the last thing I want to do today is get back in the truck and drive anywhere to another storm. Comma, if the Father tells me to go, if the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, tells me to go, I will, because my only options are obedience or disobedience. And I do not want to be disobedient to him. I have spent too much of my life being disobedient. And I realize that that debt has been paid by the blood of Messiah, and that I can't work myself into the presence of the Most High. And that at best, my works, even if rooted in righteousness, are filthy rags. I get it. I understand all of that. But I feel deeply that I still have work to do to atone for all of the people that I led astray in my previous life. And it's a blessing that the Father has given me so many different tools, whether it be this channel, or it be Grindstone, or it be Refuge, or it be Caleb House, to positively impact people, to kind of adjust the tally between people I've had a negative impact on and people I've had a positive impact on. and I'm not done yet. And praise Yah, he's not done using me yet either. And so the flesh is weary. The flesh wants to lay in bed for about 72 more hours. However, I don't think that's going to happen. So we shall see. There were a massive number of storms last night. From Salina, Texas, Pilot Point, Texas, and Lake Ray Roberts, all the way up into Illinois and I believe Ohio over the last 36 hours or so. I've gotten a lot of people asking if we're going to Salina and Pilot Point. And my answer right now is no, I don't have a conviction to go there, which is interesting because I used to live in Salina. And I think the reason for that is Grindstone typically looks for the people, if we're going to deploy, if we're going to help. My brother-in-law and sister in Salina. Yep. I have family in Salina. But typically, if Grindstone is going to look for people to help, we look for the people who didn't know how they were going to buy groceries last week and this week don't have a house. That's where we like to go. And Salina is, while there may be some low-income people there, it is not a low-income area. That's why I left it. So, and Pilot Point and Lake Ray Roberts, the marina, same thing. And so the Spirit has not convicted me that I got to go there, which in a way is weird because I have family there and my family has been contacting me going, hey, you do tornado stuff. We had a tornado. Are you coming? I'm like, probably not. Probably not, but we'll see. So let's read a little bit of this brief, shall we? Oh, I hear a squish in the background. Again last week, severe weather pummeled the nation. A tornado injured 35 and killed 4 in Iowa. By the way, I heard Ryan Hall yesterday say, do not seek shelter in a Dollar General. And I just have to reiterate this for everybody. I have a high amount of stress inoculation when it comes to tornadoes because I've done a lot of work in the aftermath of tornadoes and have chased at least one, which was stupid, and I'll leave that to the professionals next time. But when Grindstone was deployed in Perryton, Texas, another series of storms hit to the south of there in a town I believe called Matador, Texas. And a bunch of people sheltered inside of the Dollar General. And the Dollar General was completely wiped off the face of the earth. Bless you, Kimmy. Thank you. And I want to tell you something. Tornadoes spin, and Dollar Generals are made of sheet metal. You ever seen a blender? A blender is a vessel that spins. It's got 2 sheet metal blades at the bottom of it. When we responded to the Matador, Texas incident for search and rescue, and I had my oldest daughter and one other young person with me, and the Spirit told me to leave them in the truck. And so we did, and they were pretty upset. They wanted to get out. They wanted to help. I said, no, you just stay here. I'll come back and get you if we need you. And the reason for that was the Dollar General in Matador, Texas was turned into a blender with like 30-some people, 34 people inside of it. And even with my high amount of stress inoculation due to tornadoes, and I own a tactical medical company, seeing bits and pieces of people just strewn everywhere because they were inside of a blender, that one still gets me a little bit. And so never shelter inside of a Dollar General during a tornado. Any metal building. It's you're inside of a blender and you don't know it yet. It's the survivability rate's incredibly low. We're walking we're doing search and rescue, headlamps, flashlights. Going, that looks like a forearm. I think that used to be a foot. That kind of thing. Okay. All right. A tornado injured 35 and killed 4 in Iowa. Then another 8 people were killed across Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas because of violent tornado-bearing storms which flipped 18-wheelers and wreaked havoc on buildings. One gas station collapsed with dozens of people inside. On Monday, today, severe weather is expected for North Carolina and Virginia. Chief meteorologist and climate specialist Jeff Baradelli wrote an explanation for the extreme weather on X. Quote, one big reason is a stubborn weather pattern. Big heat ridge parked over Mexico and the Gulf and cold pool over the Pacific Northwest. A perfect setup as disturbances ride a semi-stalled frontal boundary, focusing storms over Tornado Alley. Oh, I don't think this laptop is plugged in. Uh-oh. 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 Oh, it's not. Hold on. Rectify situation.
Must have power.
Rectified. Got it.
Good job.
It's not just flash flooding, hail, and tornadoes, though. Extreme heat alerts were in effect for roughly 7 million people in the south of Texas over the weekend, with temperatures soaring to the triple digits. In fact, on Sunday alone, more than 20 record highs are expected across Texas, Florida, and Louisiana. On top of all of that, critical fire weather conditions are also present for Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas, too. Now, what's the point? We're 22 minutes into this coffee time with Bear. What's the point of all of this? I thought you were prepper, dude. Well, if you watched the video that dropped yesterday, SHTF is stupid. I talk about in that video how SHTF seems to be much more of a personal thing rather than a widespread incident. I was going to use the word pandemic, but we already had one of those. Weather is more likely to get you, I would submit, than the Chinese or the Russians or the North Koreans or the undocumented workers coming to the southern border. Weather is more likely to get you. And if you're going to be prepped for anything, you should really be prepped for that first, because it's the most likely thing in my experience, not opinion, in my experience. Guys, I'm in my 40s. I've 0 times been invaded by the Russians. I've 0 times been invaded by the Chinese. 0 times has an EMP been popped at high altitude. Doesn't mean it's not possible. I'm not saying that you should completely discount those things. But I am saying there's been hundreds of tornadoes in my lifetime. There's been hundreds of times our air quote elected officials have screwed me over in my lifetime. And so if we're going to prep for the most prominent threats first, is my point. Weather will absolutely get you. It gets a lot of people. Some scientists believe that Tornado Alley is broadening, shifting position further to the east towards Tennessee. I would concur based upon the recent data. Questionary thing. Bless you. Thank you. A little drum solo in the near future. Well, let's talk about weather. A drum solo would require that my drums were set up. My drums are not set up because the office and studio where my drums were set up at, let me tell you about how cool the Father is. I'm on site in Barnesville, Oklahoma, helping a family pick through what's left of their house. And in their garage were the remnants of 2 drum sets and a bunch of amps and guitars and the whole nine. I'm talking to the guy and I'm like, hey, what kind of music did you play? And he's like, oh, well, you know, it's like not that popular. I was like, what kind of music did you play? He's like, I'm into metal. I'm like, no way, me too. And so we start kicking it back and forth a little bit. And while I'm talking to him, Monica, my admin, calls me and she says, hey, bad news. The office and studio are flooding. And I'm like, define flooding. And she's like, there's water coming from the outside inside. And Lamppost and several other people were there, and they're like pulling stuff out of the office to dry out, including my drums, taking my drums down so that they don't get sopping wet. because I don't have a little drum set, and it's not an inexpensive drum set. There's, by the time you factor in drums, hardware, cymbals, microphones, drum mixing board, the whole nine, there's probably $15,000 worth of stuff there. And so she's calling me, Monica's calling me like, hey, we're gonna have to move your drums. She total stepbrothers moment. She's like, are we allowed to touch your drums? Like, given the circumstances, yes. And so I hang up the phone with her, and like, well, chalk that away, file that away under things that suck while on deployment. I'm talking to this guy, and he says, hey, what kind of drums do you have? And I said, I play Tama drums, Sabian cymbals, Vic Firth drumsticks, 5A nylon. And he's like, oh, so you're a Tama guy? I'm like, yeah, I'm a Tama guy. And he goes, cool, I got something for you. Okay. This guy's house had just been demolished by a freaking tornado, right? He goes, I got something for you. And from underneath the tarp in his garage, he pulls out a Tama Star Classic Babinga snare drum. If you don't know about drums, suffice it to say, like, that's a real nice snare drum. And he goes, I'm a DW guy, but I picked this up at a pawn shop for $60, and I've just been kind of holding on to it. And he goes, I think you're supposed to have it. And I said, well, I really appreciate that, but I don't think I'm allowed to take anything from you. I'm going to have to go back to the fob this evening and talk to my dad, talk to the father, and ask if it's okay if I receive anything from you, because I came out here to help you for no reason other than to help you. And he's like, roger that. I appreciate that. Well, the next day we get out on site, and somewhere halfway through the middle of the day, I'm diving through my truck looking for something, and on the back seat of the truck is that snare drum. And I went and talked to the guy, and I said, hey, man, I noticed the snare drum. He goes, yeah, you're supposed to have it. You're the reason I was holding on to this. And so, coincidence, I'm sure that all that's going down at the same time. So as far as Bear doing a drum solo for you, it's going to be a hot minute because my drums aren't set up, and I'm not entirely sure that the flooding issue at the office has been remediated. And I don't know when I'm going to have time to set my drums back up again, let alone play them. So you're probably going to have to just hold on for that. Let's see. Some scientists believe that Tornado Alley is broadening, shifting further to the east towards Tennessee. One expert said that the Mid-South will see about a 25% increased risk of tornado threats. Another, associate professor of meteorology, Jana Hauser at Ohio State University, noted that the destruction a few months ago was, quote, a representation of what we might perhaps expect to happen in a particularly active tornado season as we move forward in a warming climate regime. Yeah. So let me tell you what's going to happen with the climate. I know. Here's how you get a label left on your video and/or demonetized. The temperature is going to go up a little bit, and then it's going to plummet like it always has, like when there's a spike in the temperature before we have these cooling periods, as we know historically have been happening cyclically for a very long time, whatever your view of the world looks like, 6,000 years or 13.4 billion years, your pick. And if we're going to go there, let's go there. You can all the way get me with what's called the Genesis gap theory, meaning that there's a gap between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, 1. And the earth became formless and was void, 2. And that phrase, minor teaching for you, that phrase, formless and void, or without form and void, is the exact same phrase that's used, the exact same Hebrew that's used to describe the destruction at Sodom and Gomorrah. So you could read, and the earth became utterly destroyed. So in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Roger that. Got it. So that's how the heavens and the earth got here. And then the earth became utterly destroyed. Aha. And then Elohim started putting things back together again. Interesting. You might do your own research on that. I ain't preaching on it. I'm just saying it's a very interesting turn of phrase, formless and void. Look into it. Tornadoes are expected to increase in both violence and frequency, along with strong storms and hail in general. Also in the U.S., the bird flu has started crossing over into cattle, and is continuing, not Caddo, which is a town in Oklahoma, but cattle, which is like moo cows. So bird flu is crossing over into moo cows, and that's continuing to raise some concerns. So far, two people who work with dairy cattle have tested positive for the virus. Now, remember, what does the virus do? It gives you a slight fever and slight malaise for a few days. This is not the Black Plague. Okay. So far, two people who work with dairy cattle have tested positive for the virus, and one sample of beef tissue out of 96 samples tested so far was positive for bird flu. Routine testing should continue to prevent infected tissue from entering the food supply, but there are still concerns about dairy, raw milk specifically. Now, one might ask themselves, why? Why would the industrial agricultural system attack raw milk? Reading from, before this is labeled as misinformation by YouTube, reading from Google, which is the company that owns YouTube. When Googling benefits of raw milk, this is what Google said. So if this is misinformation, Google, you played yourself. Raw milk has many potential health benefits, including raw milk is a good source of protein, calcium, vitamin A, and iron. It also contains hundreds of fatty acids, including conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, and omega-3s, which may reduce the risk of heart disease and diabetes. Raw milk contains beneficial bacteria that can help maintain healthy gut flora and aid in digestion. Culturing milk can increase its probiotic and enzyme content, making it even more beneficial for digestion. And raw milk can be used as a natural moisturizer and cleanser for the skin. It can also help brighten dull skin, treat acne, and exfoliate. And raw milk may be a better option for people with dairy sensitivities. So that's from Google before I get labeled with misinformation. No, I haven't found out about Grandpa Charlie's 5th Infantry Division yet. It's in my brain, but it's so far in the back of my brain, given everything that I've had going on lately, I haven't had an opportunity to find out. Let's see. As avian influenza continues to infect dairy cattle, like barely though, just so we're on the same page here, just like barely, samples of unpasteurized milk have already tested positive for the virus. Federal authorities have warned that drinking raw milk infected with the virus may be dangerous. And so you might get a slight fever and general malaise for 48 hours. When we say dangerous, this is what we're talking about. It's not like if you drink the wrong glass of milk, your head will explode. It's not that. It's not Russian roulette with milk. Okay. Recently, some farms selling such milk have declined to have their milk tested. And even after reporters purchased and submitted the milk for testing themselves, a USDA-approved lab contacted the farm to seek permission to test it. Brandon Dominguez, the head of veterinary services section head at Texas A&M Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Laboratory, holy crap, that's a mouthful, said that the dairies were, quote, aware of what a non-negative test would do to their business. They asked that we do not run the test, end quote. The laboratory did not run the tests. Mark McAfee, farmer and founder of the Raw Milk Institute, like many dairy farmers, believes the theoretical risk is too easily weaponized. Quote, the FDA will take any excuse to blast us any way they can, he said. Don Prater, the head of the FDA Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, he said, quote, pasteurization is effective at inactivating the virus. We strongly advise against the consumption of raw milk that has not been pasteurized, and recommend that the industry does not manufacture or sell raw milk or raw milk products made with milk from cows showing symptoms of illness, any illness, including those infected with the avian influenza. So, now, because of the avian influenza, you shouldn't, another reason that you shouldn't drink raw milk. because it's good for you. And the government knows that it's good for you. Let's see what else. Storms, central bank digital currencies. We're going to talk about that. I wanted to illustrate. I'm sure because you're a very well informed audience. I'm sure that you're already tracking on this, but the $320 million pier that we taxpayers funded for getting aid into Gaza, not AIDS. Don't get AIDS into Gaza. Getting aid into Gaza. That pier, yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Remember that? It doesn't work. Way to go, Biden. Like everything else during this presidency, incredibly expensive and ineffective. My favorite combination of factors. Incredibly expensive and ineffective. From RT, Russia Today, U.S. Navy suffers Gaza pier setback. 4 vessels were grounded after disconnecting from a $320 million floating pier off the coast of Gaza. And one could argue, well, this is Russia Today. Of course, their slant is going to be against the United States. Bro, they're just reporting facts at this point. The facts make us look bad. They don't even have to spin it. Like, psst. Psst. 4 U.S. Navy vessels, which had been connected to a floating pier off the coast of Gaza, have broken off their moorings and run aground on an Israeli beach due to a storm, U.S. Central Commander CENTCOM has said. The pier, built on orders from U.S. President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. to deliver aid to Gaza amid the Israeli military operation, has been in operation since last week. According to the Pentagon, the project is expected to cost the U.S. around $320 million. 4 vessels were disconnected from a jetty on Saturday, according to CENTCOM, adding that there were no deaths or injuries and that the pier's operations were unaffected. The first ship became stuck on a beach in the Israeli port city of Ashdod. Another vessel sent to extract it also ran aground, according to the Times of Israel. 2 vessels are now anchored on the beach near the pier, CENTCOM said, adding that the 3rd and 4th ships were beached on the coast near the Israeli city of Ashkelon. According to CENTCOM, efforts to recover the vessels are being assisted by the Israeli military. No, quote, no U.S. personnel will enter Gaza, end quote, during the operation, it stressed. Earlier this week, 3 U.S. soldiers were injured while working on the pier and 1 required hospitalization in Israel. The UN, which distributes aid from trucks ferried by U.S. ships to the pier, said deliveries had to be halted on Saturday and Monday after Palestinians rushed at the moving trucks and looted their entire cargo. The capture, quote, represents a minority of the overall shipments, end quote, Daniel Diekhaus, U.S. Aid's Gaza response manager, said in a briefing this Friday. Yeah, it represents a minority of the overall shipments. However, the majority, almost all, the totality of all of those shipments, reporting is they've never actually made it to Gaza. Yeah, because the trucks have been swarmed every time by desperate people. Which goes back to, I don't know how many times I've said this, but I'll say it again. Don't get in the bread line. Don't be where the bread line is. Don't need the bread line. Palestine was a shit show before this most recent conflict kicked off. However, according to USAID or UNAID or whatever they call themselves, who are they? USAID. Yeah, USAID. Palestine went from relative food security to famine in 5 months. 5 months went from relative food security to famine in 5 months. That's a good metric for us, right? So when I tell you, like, you should probably have a year's worth of food put up, a lot of people think that that's way too much food to have for too long. But you go from relative food security in an area that's 100% dependent upon inputs of resources, right? So if you live in a city or even the suburbs, you're 100 or near to 100% dependent upon resource inputs. Okay, so it's a facsimile. Gaza has effects similarly for your city. They went from relative food security to famine in 5 months. And once you hit famine, it's not like the famine is instantly cured. The aid trucks show up. Because as we're seeing, the aid trucks, the aid isn't even getting to the people it's meant for. So that famine is going to continue. And so if you have a year's worth of food put back, that'll probably get you through most potentially bad things in the United States of America. My number's different. And I'm not saying that you need to prep for my number. But what the Father told me explicitly was 7 years. You need 7 years worth of food, Mr. Bear Man. And here's what I don't know. I don't know. Remains to be seen, because the Father works in mysterious ways. Is that 7 years worth of food one family mine for 7 years? Is it 2 families for 3.5 years? Is it 7 families for 1 year? Is it 14 families for 6 months? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I just know he told me 7 years. You need 7 years. Copy. And I often don't speak about that at this channel because I don't want y'all to feel disheartened. Like, I've only got 3 months worth of food put up and Bear's prepping for 7 years. Like, trust me, my wife doesn't love it either. We got food shoehorned everywhere. I've got 2,240 pounds of wheat in the barn that I got a bucket that I haven't bucketed yet because tornado stuff. It's ridiculous. I'll be the first to acknowledge 7 years worth of food is ridiculous. But that's what the Father said, so that's what I'm going to do. Because I bet you Joseph and Pharaoh thought 7 years worth of food was ridiculous too, until they needed it. And so I tell y'all 1 year, because I think 1 year is very attainable, even in 2024 with the monetary shenanigans that we've got going on. Dana says 7 years of food supply would take an entire storage unit of space. Wrong, Dana. Try 2 10x20s and 1 10x10 plus what's on property.
7 years for one person.
For one person, maybe. It's a lot. It's a lot. So my point is, Gaza went from relative food stability to famine in 5 months. So don't be like Gaza, okay? Let's see. So the pier doesn't work, and the 4 ships that were moored to the pier have all been lost because of a storm. They're recoverable, but they're no longer connected to the pier. And then an article from The Blaze that I found interesting this morning, because I've heard whispers or rumors of this. I haven't really dug into it until this morning because I've been a little busy. What's up, Artorius? MC Uper says you should open a small restaurant. So I've thought about opening a restaurant, and when I do open a restaurant, it'll be called Moshe's, and we're going to serve the best lamb probably in North America because we're good at it. But here's the thing about restaurants. Number 1, low margins. Number 2, high probability of failure. Number 3, requires a lot of your time. And I've got other things going on right now. So one day, although my wife and I have joked about becoming restaurateurs in our 40s, we'll see. As if we don't have enough things going on already, which I'm in the process of. Yeah, our 40s are filling up. That's a good way of saying that. But I'm in the process of streamlining how I operate the things that I operate. You know, Bug Out Bob and Liberty basically run the day-to-day, the tactical and the strategic operations of Refuge Medical. Bear Independent is me, supported by a staff that helps me make and schedule content. My consultancy is me, and I don't do a whole lot of that lately because it just cost benefit analysis. The sew shop is now part of Refuge, which is great. Right? Consolidation. Grindstone is me and a board and an executive director and probably going to be leaning more on said executive director. So it'll be less me unless we're deployed, and the day-to-day operations more executive director. Caleb House is the same thing. Me, teams, board, executive director, and leaning more and more on the people in the field and the people who are closest to the problems to sort their problems and handle it. But I don't have to be directly involved in the day-to-day operations of any of these things. And by and large, I'm not directly involved in the daily operations of any of these things. I sit above the fray at the strategic level and make the calls that need to be made. When we were rolling out of Barnesville, we had a half a dozen guys breaking down the fob, loading everything up into the trailers, and bless their hearts, these men were doing exactly what they knew how to do. And they kept asking me questions like, but if we take the kitchen stuff down, what are we going to eat for lunch? I don't know, figure it out. Where do you want the I don't care on the trailer? What should we do with the I don't care on the trailer? And finally I was like, hey guys, stop asking me tactical questions. Stop, figure it out. Here's what I want you to do. I don't care how you do it, as long as it's legal, moral, ethical. But I'm up here trying to answer these questions, deal with these problems up here. And every time you ask me a question that's down here, it takes me out of the strategic, puts me in the tactical. And then you got to back brief me with what's going on the tactical level so that I have some understanding of your situation to better help you solve this problem. When the fact of the matter is, you know what to do. You're just asking me for approval to do it. And you've already been pre-approved to do whatever you need to do to get this shit done. So just get it done, because I've got things up here that I got to deal with. That's the way I operate everything. Like everything. It doesn't matter. But I don't get involved at the tactical level. I try and stay at the strategic level. And that's with all of the things that we do, other than Bear Independent, because there's only one person that can operate Bear Independent at the tactical level, and that's me. If we put any other face in front of the camera for too long of a period of time, it's no longer Bear Independent anymore, and I'm very aware of that. So, what's up, Mark O'Connor? Central bank digital currencies from the Blaze. Republicans fight back against central bank digital currencies. Congress is finally starting to take the CBDC threat seriously. Not to be confused with CBD, which is like weed that doesn't get you high or something. On May 23rd, 2024, the Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives struck a major blow to the implementation of central bank digital currencies, passing a CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act, or House Resolution 5403, which prohibits the Federal Reserve from directly issuing a CBDC, central bank digital currency, without explicit approval from Congress, using a CBDC to set monetary policy, and maintaining financial accounts for individuals, something the failed Biden nominee Saul Omarova had proposed. Now, based upon my understanding currently, this is good because Congress is supposed to hold the power of the purse, not the Federal Reserve System, which is the only thing federal about it is the name. It's a private bank. So, digging this thus far. Representative Patrick McHenry, Republican of North Carolina, who is chairman of the House Financial Service Committee, had this to say, quote, "This bill is straightforward. It halts unelected bureaucrats from issuing a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, that would be detrimental to Americans' right to financial privacy. We've already seen examples of governments weaponizing their financial system against their own citizens. For example, the Chinese Communist Party uses a CBDC to track spending habits of its citizens. This data is being used to create a social credit system that rewards or punishes people based on their behavior. That type of financial surveillance has no place in the United States. Concerningly, it appears the current administration does not agree. In 2022, the White House issued an executive order pushing for CBDC research and development. The corresponding report responding to that executive order did nothing to ease those concerns. This is why the CBDC Anti-State Surveillance Act is necessary." The Globalist Atlantic Council came out firmly against the bill in the confusingly titled editorial, quote, "Don't let the U.S. become the only country to ban CBDCs," which said, Quote, in fact, if this bill ever became law, the United States would be the only country in the world to have banned CBDCs. It would be a self-defeating move in the race for the future of money. It would undercut a national security role of the dollar, as the decision would only accelerate other countries' development of alternative payment systems that look to bypass the dollar in cross-border transactions. This would make U.S. sanctions less effective. Here's the thing. So our current money is funny money. It's monopoly money. It's fiat currency. Bless you, Warthog Survival. That's our current money. Our former money used to be backed by gold and silver. It is no longer. And at least with our funny money, it's tangible. I can touch it. And it only has inherent value because we have all agreed that it has inherent value, and the government has mandated that it have inherent value. Thus the term fiat. It's a piece of paper that has no inherent value, but we decide that if you give me this rectangle with these numbers on it, that means it's $100. Okay. The problem with digital currencies, for me, your mileage may vary, and I'm not telling you what you got to do in your house, but the issue that I have with them is that I can't touch them. And with all the cyber attacks going on, you don't understand how the blockchain system works. I don't care. I know that it's run by electricity, and I know a lot about electricity. Like, it's not as dependable as you think that it is, and it's not as secure as you think that it is. If I can't touch it, if I can't put my hands on it, it doesn't exist to me. I'm so practical that it hurts sometimes. I want assets that I can touch and hold in my hand, that now I have them. These are mine, not safeguarded at a bank somewhere or safeguarded, air quote, by the federal government. 0% interested. Now, one of the reasons that people are pushing back against CBDCs or proposed CBDCs is, to the point of this quote from Patrick McHenry, is that the use of CBDC can be used to curtail certain behaviors or support for certain behaviors. Lateral over to U.S. tax code. The tax code is written the way the tax code is written to incentivize people to behave a certain way. If I want widespread adoption of renewable energy, for example, wind and solar, I will give people tax credits like the wind energy tax credit, which I believe is 30% and has been 30% for 15 years or so. I will give people a 30% tax credit, wind energy tax credit, so that they will develop wind energy to get the tax credit. And so the government shapes behaviors based upon taxation. The things that are, think about it. How many people have not bought a suppressor because they don't want to pay the $200 NFA tax stamp and they don't want their name on a list? Which has done what? Curtailed widespread adoption of suppressors. See? So taxation is a tool that the government uses to shape behavior. So it's a fact. It's also completely unconstitutional, but I digress. But it is, taxation and tax policy is used to reinforce certain behaviors and discourage other behaviors. The CBDC, as it is done in China with the social credit score, could do the same thing and be one more tool in the government's toolkit to shape your behavior, which is not, in the United States of America, how things are supposed to run. And to the point of the Atlantic saying that we would be the only country in the world that didn't have CBDCs. Good. I'm cool with that. We're not set up. We're not supposed to be set up like every other country in the world. Like, they're making it sound like if we don't get CBDCs, we'll be the last kid picked for dodgeball in school. It's not that. Sometimes it is good to stand alone, to be separate, to be set apart, to be sanctified. That's what the word holy means. Just because, remember when you were a kid and your mom would say, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? The answer is probably. I mean, joke's on you. I'm into that kind of stuff. But just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean that it's wise to do it. And so I see the potential adoption of CBDC as one more tool in the government's toolkit to reinforce certain behaviors and curtail other certain behaviors. Like what? Well, what if they decide that it's time for Plandemic 2.0 and you only have access to your digital currency if you've done these certain things like poking holes in your arm with experimental medication? That could never happen. I think it could. I think we saw how easily the majority of the population fell in line lockstep with what we knew at the time, but we know now to be fraudulent information that came out of the government. And that was with fewer forcing mechanisms than the government saying you do or don't have access to your money. Exactly, Sandman. What happens when an area's electric is down for a month or better? Cyber money is useless. Precisely. Precisely. So I'm not a big fan of cyber money. And the end of the article here. What is a CBDC? A quick refresher. If you're unfamiliar with CBDCs, we encourage you to check out our blah, blah, blah. Here's a quick rundown of what they are and what they can do. A central bank digital currency is a digital currency like Bitcoin or Ethereum, but issued by a country's central bank, which we're not supposed to have in the United States of America. With a CBDC, the central bank would maintain your account balance instead of an independent regional bank. A CBDC is programmable, giving governments and central banks more control over fiscal policy. For example, with a central bank digital currency, a government could issue a stimulus payment that had to be used in a certain amount of time or could only be used on certain items to reduce the chance of inflation. The flip side is that governments could use central bank digital currencies to track all economic activity and even control it. For instance, if a government wanted to effectively ban tobacco products without legislation, it could simply exclude them from being purchased with central bank digital currencies. So, and that's our coffee time for today. That's what I got. You know, that's where my head's at today. That's what we got going on. Links to all the cool stuff is in the description down below. Video on Patreon this morning is called Surviving Lean Times. Got a question from one of the patrons, basically positing that we are going into more lean times, and what experience, if any, do I have with existing in lean times, and then how do we extrapolate that forward to what our future might look like? And so that's on Patreon this morning. Check it out. Refuge Medical. I told you all that the promo code PREP, which gets you 15% off, the last day you'll be able to use that is the 31st of this month. Today's the 27th. So you got about 4 days, promo code PREP, to get 15% off at refugemedical.com. And that includes components, kits, bags, and classes, and trainings. And we have some awesome classes in the store. We have Responder 1 and 2. We have the Essential Responder, and we have Surviving Womanhood. And the Essential Responder has an add-on, the Night TACMED course. TACMED Force on Force under nods overnight. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait to shoot you with simunitions. And there's also the Mother's Day giveaway. Thank you, babe. So in the month of May, all orders over $149 are automatically entered into a chance to win a complete Joseph's Kitchen setup, which is your wheat grinder, your bread machine, your olive oil, your salt, your honey, all of that. Complete.
Super cool cutting board.
Super cool bread cutting board. And a KitchenAid stand mixer, which is badass. My wife has one with most of the attachments, I think. All the ones that matter. And a bunch of kits from Refuge Medical as well. And so it's a huge, bigly, believe it, tremendous, the best giveaway. Melania. By the way, Trump needs to get reelected simply so we can all resume our Trump impressions. That would be that'd be good for me.
We need more words.
That would be good for me. The best words, believe it, the best.
Could you imagine
So-
if it shows up on Pelt?
Promo code PREP gets you 15% off. All orders over 149 bucks get you automatically entered to win that May Day Mother's Day giveaway, which is massive. All of our kits and our medical components, not books, not patches, not stickers, not classes. All of our kits and medical components are HSA and FSA eligible. And promo code PREP, 15% off, ends the 31st of May. It's an awesome giveaway. Oh, Refuge is here in the chat. Show you guys real quick. OpFac. This is the new kid on the block. It's got some fuzz on it. I don't know where that came from, but this is the new kid on the block. You can wear this on your war belt, your plate carrier, your chest rig. You can get the travel fac version of this, which mounts to the headrest of your vehicle. Got your tourniquet on the outside. Got your chem lights over here, Sharpie, the whole nine. And there's more elastic tabby doos here if you want to stick a second tourniquet or whatever inside of here. You've got tie downs, lashing points on the front. This is Molly Pals webbing compatible on the back. And the way this works is you got your tourniquet and the sleeve up top. Ta-da! And we send you new cat tourniquets, real ones from Cat Resources North American Rescue. This is a real Gen 7 cat tourniquet, not a Rhino Rescue or a whatever else bullshit Chinesium crap. So a real Gen 7 cat tourniquet. And then on the inside here, oh look, a red handle. Pull the red handle. Boom. All the things I need and none of the things I don't to put myself and or a buddy back together again when the world ends, or you have an accident at the range, or your car flips over. Our Refuge media team personnel responded to a head-on collision yesterday. Woman trapped in the vehicle. That's their story to tell. But suffice it to say, if you drive a motor vehicle, you need a first aid kit and you need to know how to use it. It's just a fact. Okay. These are made in America. They're guaranteed forever. If you break this, I will replace it at no cost to you. If you use this to save somebody's life, I will replace all the components up to and including the entire kit at no cost to you. 122 people are still alive. 122 people are still alive because of that little company right there, Refuge Medical. So I don't think that these kits work. I know that they work. Look, the bare minimum, 219 bucks before the code. Made in America, guaranteed forever. Shears on the outside, Gen 7 cat on the outside. The way this works, see there's a lid. Pull that tab, pull the red handle. Boom, first aid kit. Boom, can be opened with one hand. Boom, prioritized per the March algorithm for care. So I've got a tourniquet, I've got shears, I've got wound packing gauze, I've got quick clot, hemostatically impregnated gauze, Kerlix rolled gauze, a pair of gloves, a Sharpie in the middle right here, my medical tape, I've got my emergency trauma bandage, I've got my Made in the USA tag because we actually make them here in the United States of America. In the back, I've got a burn shield dressing and a pair, 2 chest seals. And then down here, but wait, there's more. I feel like Billy Mays. I've got Band-Aids. I've got my boo-boo wipes, you know, BZK, antiseptic, triple antibiotics, sting relief, etc. I've got steri strips for wound closure if when Susie falls off of her bike, it's really bad. And I've got my gauze pack, 2x2s, 4x4s, 5x9s right here. And this one, and this is going to come as a shock, is made in the USA and guaranteed forever and HSA, FSA eligible and in stock. And you can use promo code PREP for 15% off. And if you did, that would be a large enough order to get you qualified into the giveaway. Ooh, how interesting. Last thing, let's not sleep on one of our winners here. I'll show you one more thing. Maybe you're a tactical cool guy, you're a police officer, you're in the militia, you're prepping for the end of the world as we know it, and you don't have an adequate blowout kit on your war belt, your chest rig, your plate carrier. This is the SOB, small of the back kit. It weighs as much as one loaded AR-15 magazine. It technically weighs 0.4 ounces less than that. Yeah. Okay. So this is 15.6 ounces as shown, less than a pound. All right. Cat tourniquet on the bottom down here. And you can run this upside down or right side up. I run mine upside down on my plate carrier like this, right here. And then if I need it, I pop this down, grab the red handle, and boom, I've got my little Made in America suitcase right here. It has everything I need and nothing I don't inside of it to deal with shot, stabbed, blown up. Pressure bandage, combat gauze, real combat gauze, not make-believe Chinese combat gauze. Pressure bandage, combat gauze, wound packing gauze, chest seals, nasopharyngeal airway, Sharpie, flat duct tape, etc. And very compact, weighs less than a pound, made in America, guaranteed forever. Isn't that right, Wheeze? Sure. Look at that. See that little tag right there? What does that say? Made in America. Boom, right there. So all this stuff is in stock, shipping fast. Check it out, refugemedical.com. Grindstone Ministries. If you've been paying attention, you know that we've been doing a lot of Grindstone Ministries stuff, and we are 100% privately funded. Unlike a lot of these other air quote ministries and air quote nonprofits whose sustainability plan is you come donate your time and then they bill the federal government, FEMA, for your time and then get paid for your time. We don't do that. We are supported by y'all, grindstoneministries.com. If the spirit moves and you'd like to pour into the ministry, grindstoneministries.com. If you'd like to deploy with Grindstone Ministries to do storm stuff, there's an email newsletter sign up at grindstoneministries.com. When we deploy, I send an op-ord via email to everybody on that list. We don't market to you. We don't solicit to you. We don't sell that email list. We just use it to communicate with y'all for Grindstone stuff. So if you want to deploy, get on that email list. And then when we deploy, an email will go out and you'll have all the details in that op-ord via email. Okay? So sign up for that at grindstoneministries.com. And if you don't have a Bible and you need one, you can buy one at our cost at grindstoneministries.com, or you can contact us via the email at grindstoneministries.com, where grindstoneministries.com, link in the description, and I will send you one for free. Okay? Okay. We have only given away, I think, 7,000 Bibles. 7,000-ish Bibles thus far. Praise the Most High. So if you find yourself in need, grindstoneministries.com. And lastly, but certainly not least, Caleb House, Caleb with a K, calebhouse.org. Caleb House is our juvenile human trafficking survivor restoration ministry. What does that mean? We take kiddos who have been trafficked by bad people and we put them back together again. We have teams in the field, even this very moment, that are making sure that bad things happen to bad people, that these children are recovered, and then that they're restored. And there are 4 other places in North America, 4, all privately funded, just like Caleb House, that restore children. That's it. There are 420 beds nationwide for trafficked children for restoration. For comparison, DHS currently has 17,400 beds for newcomers, as the Biden administration calls them, 17,400 beds, and is soliciting Congress for another 100,000 beds for newcomers. And there are 420 beds nationwide to restore trafficked children. When Caleb House 1 is complete, that will add another 60 beds. And then we're building Caleb House 2 and 3 and 5 and 17 and 87 and 963 until I don't have to build these things anymore because the problem's been solved and or I'm dead. At which point, preferably, the people that are part of the Caleb House organization, whom I love, continue doing this work without me. That's the plan. It's a life's work and I'm happy to do it. I don't enjoy doing it because it's a horrendous problem that needs to be solved, but I'm happy to do it. If you want to plug into that, Caleb House, calebwithak.com. Again, we're 100% privately funded. I don't take grant money. I don't take federal money or state money because I will not adhere to their woke ideological BS. I won't do it. And I don't want the government telling me how we have to operate these facilities, because if the government could solve this problem, I wouldn't have to do this in the first place. They can't. They won't. In many cases, they're the problem. So check it out, calebhouse.org. Links in the description. And with that, let's speak to the creator of the universe. Good morning, Father Yah. Father, thank you for all the things we take for granted. Father, thank you for the men and women who gave their lives in defense of this country, that we might still somehow in 2024 be able to live in a world where we can read your word and preach your word and live your word without fear of persecution. Father, thank you for that. Father, thank you for my family and for my camp and for my tribe and for all these people, Father, that you have fearfully and wonderfully made and have put into my hand for stewardship. Father, for everybody out there who's going through some stuff today, I pray that you'd be near to them, that you would minister to them. Father, that you would give them peace that surpasses all understanding, even in light of the day on the calendar that today is, and even in light of the fact that the world continues to apparently spiral out of control, that you are still sovereign over all things, and that you are good, and that you love us, and none of us is beyond redemption, that it is not possible for us to run far enough away from you that you stop loving us. Thank you for that. Father, please give us strength and power and authority in the name of Yeshua to be your hands and feet, to meet the challenges of the world head on, to be unafraid, to remember who we are and remember our inheritance, that we are sons and daughters of the living Elohim, washed clean by the blood of the Lamb. Father, pour out your Spirit on all flesh for wisdom and discernment, that we would know right from wrong, that we would move in your steps, not in ours, that you would open all the doors that need to be opened and close all the doors that need to be closed for us, that you would put us where we need to be and give us the words that we need to speak, and that we would fear only you. Father, you are sovereign over all things, including our bodies and our minds and our hearts. I pray that you just continue to pour out on us and use us for your will to the best of our broken ability. Father Yah, I lay all these people at your feet. I ask you to please bless them today, protect them today, provide for them today. And if there is anything within the sound of my voice that's not of you, I rebuke it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach and command it to flee. Father, thank you for the opportunity to serve you. I pray that you just continue to use us, that you would continue to tarry with us. And I praise you for your love and your mercy, that you would redeem us rather than destroy us. And I thank you for how good you are, even when we don't deserve it. I ask these things in Yeshua's name. Amen. Oh. Jason said Buckets and Bibles has a good YouTube channel worth watching. I would agree with that. I think every one of you who's on this live stream right now, if you're not subscribed to Buckets and Bibles, should go subscribe to Buckets and Bibles. How would I know? I do life with that guy, and he's really cool. In fact, I think it was having an impromptu driveway conversation with buckets and Bibles yesterday afternoon that completely kept me from losing my shit and spinning out of control yesterday. Because I don't know why, but there was just a weird vibe in the air yesterday. So praise Yah for good brothers. I hope you all have an awesome day. I really do. I appreciate y'all being a part of what we do here at the Bear Independent channel. Thank you, because we literally couldn't do it without you. I hope y'all have a blessed day, and I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Shalom.